Have you ever wondered why some couples can talk for hours every single day? They check in, they text good morning, they ask about each other's day, and yet, somewhere along the way, it stops feeling like connection. It starts feeling like maintenance. That's what we're talking about today. Why better communication, the advice you've heard 1,000 times, won't actually save your relationship, and what will instead.
Quick disclaimer before we get into it. This isn't a replacement for couples therapy, especially if you're dealing with something serious like infidelity or abuse. What we're covering today is about everyday emotional drift, the slow, quiet kind that most couples go through and rarely talk about. All right, let's get to it. For decades, communicate more has been the go-to advice for almost every relationship problem. Feeling distant? Communicate more. Fighting too much? Communicate more. It sounds smart, even logical, but here's the catch. Communication is not the same thing as connection. You can have perfect communication, clear, polite, even thoughtful, and still feel completely unseen by the person you're talking to. So why does this happen? Let's start with an analogy. Think about two business partners who have a great system. They email each other on time, they update the shared calendar, they never miss a deadline. On paper, the partnership is functioning perfectly. But if you asked either of them, do you actually feel like this person understands what matters to you? The answer might be no. The system works. The relationship behind the system doesn't. That's exactly what happens in a lot of long-term couples. The logistics of the relationship, who picks up the kids, what's for dinner, who's free on Saturday, get handled with total efficiency. That's communication. But underneath it, there's a second layer that almost never gets touched. Do you feel emotionally known by this person right now? That's connection. And those two things can exist completely independently of each other. This is exactly why couples can swear with total honesty, we talk all the time, and still feel like roommates. They're not lying. They genuinely do talk all the time. They're just talking about the wrong layer. Now, let's talk about what that second layer actually requires, because this is where it gets interesting. In theory, more communication should fix everything. In reality, more communication about logistics just makes the logistics smoother. It doesn't touch the emotional distance at all. You can have a flawless conversation about whose turn it is to do the school run and still go to bed feeling like you live with a very efficient stranger. So what's actually missing? Researchers like John Gottman, who has spent decades studying what makes relationships last, point to something different. It's not the amount of talking, it's the quality of emotional attunement. Whether your partner notices your internal world, not just your schedule. Gottman's well-known concept of turning toward versus turning away captures this well. Every day, your partner gives you small bids for connection. A sigh, a comment, a glance. Turning toward means responding to that bid, even briefly. Turning away means missing it, usually without even realizing it. Here's the kicker. You can turn away from 100 small bids while still having great communication about everything else. That's the gap nobody talks about. Let's break this down into the two layers so it's clear. The first layer is logistical communication, coordinating schedules, making decisions, solving practical problems. This is necessary, but it's not intimacy, it's maintenance. The second layer is emotional attunement, noticing your partner's internal state, responding to their bids for connection, making them feel seen in the small moments, not just heard in the big ones. Most couples are excellent at the first layer and starving on the second. And because the first layer looks like communicating, it's easy to mistake busyness for closeness. Let me give you a concrete example. Picture a couple. We'll call them Mark and Elena. Mark comes home from work and says, "Today was rough." Elena, mid-task, replies, "Oh no, what happened?" And Mark says, "It's fine, don't worry about it." Elena, taking him at his word, moves on. Logistically, this exchange was complete. A question was asked, an answer was given. Communication, technically, happened. But emotionally, Mark gave a small bid. Today was rough, hoping Elena would turn toward it. Maybe sit down, maybe ask a follow-up question, maybe just pause for 10 seconds. Elena, busy and not realizing the bid was real, accepted his deflection at face value. Neither of them did anything wrong. Mark wasn't hiding something sinister, and Elena wasn't being neglectful. They were both just running on autopilot, the way most couples do most evenings. But that's a missed moment of attunement, and it's the kind of thing that happens dozens of times a week in most relationships, completely unnoticed. This is exactly why couples who fight the most sometimes have stronger relationships than couples who never fight at all. Fighting, when it's about something real, at least means someone is reaching for attunement, even clumsily. Silence, on the other hand, can mean nobody's reaching anymore. So what's the actual solution here? Not more communication, better attunement to the bids that are already happening. Here's the practical version. Start noticing the small, low-stakes moments where your partner says something slightly vulnerable, even in passing. "Today was rough. I'm a little tired. That meeting was annoying." These are bids. They don't require a deep conversation. They just require 10 extra seconds of turning toward instead of moving past. What happened? Followed by actually waiting for the answer. Not solving it, not redirecting to your own day. Just staying there for a moment. This isn't about scheduling more deep talks. In theory, a weekly date night where you finally really talk sounds like the fix. In reality, attunement built only in scheduled moments rarely survives the other 6 days of small missed bids. It's not a black and white decision between logistics and connection. Most relationships need both. But if you only ever build the logistical layer, the emotional layer quietly starves, even while the relationship looks functional from the outside. One more piece worth mentioning. Attachment theory gives us a useful lens here too. People with more anxious attachment patterns tend to send out bids more frequently and more visibly, almost testing whether their partner will turn toward them. People with more avoidant patterns tend to send subtler bids, sometimes so subtle they're easy to miss entirely. Like Mark's, "It's fine, don't worry about it." Knowing your partner's pattern doesn't fix the gap by itself, but it tells you where to look for the bids you might be missing. Let's go back to Mark and Elena for a second, because there's a version of that same evening that goes differently. Same words, same tiredness, same instinct from Mark to deflect. But this time, Elena doesn't take "it's fine" at face value. She pauses what she's doing for literally 5 seconds and says, "Hey, you said rough. What actually happened?" Mark might still wave it off the first time. That's normal. But the fact that she turned toward it instead of accepting the deflection registers somewhere, even if neither of them names it out loud. Over weeks, that small 5-second pause, repeated enough times, is what attunement actually looks like in practice. It's not a grand gesture. It's not a long talk. It's a tiny refusal to let the bid pass by unanswered. Here's another version of the same pattern, just to show how often this shows up in places you wouldn't expect. A couple is getting ready for bed. One partner says, almost as a throwaway line, "I don't know, work's been weird lately." The other partner, already half asleep, says, "Yeah," and rolls over. Nothing dramatic happened. No fight, no silence treatment, just a bid that floated by unanswered, the way dozens of bids float by every week in most households. Multiply that by years, and you get two people who technically never stopped talking and still somehow drifted into separate emotional rooms.
So what does this mean for you practically? It's not about talking more. It's not about scheduling more serious conversations, even though those have their place. It's about noticing the small, almost invisible moments where your partner is quietly asking to be seen, and choosing just slightly more often to turn toward instead of past. For most couples, that single shift, paying attention to the small bids instead of just the big logistics, does more for closeness than any amount of "let's communicate better" ever will. Of course, every relationship is different, and if the distance you're feeling is tied to something deeper, repeated betrayal, ongoing conflict that never resolves, or anything that feels unsafe, that's worth bringing to a licensed therapist, rather than trying to fix it through small daily habits alone. But for the everyday drift that most long-term couples quietly experience, it's rarely about the size of the conversation. It's about whether you turned toward the small moment or let it pass by. You don't need a better vocabulary for love. You need about 5 more seconds of attention, given a little more often, to the parts of your partner that are quietly asking to be noticed. I really appreciate you sticking with me through this one. If this gave you a different way of looking at your own relationship, hit like and consider subscribing. It genuinely helps this channel keep going. Thanks for watching, and see you very soon.